Hi, Asma. Morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
I had a quick look at the book. Congratulations on the second publication. I wanted to ask, you're regarded as a pioneer on the UK Asian restaurant scene, but would it be accurate to say that you were actually following in the footsteps of your mom?
Totally. Absolutely. But I hadn't realized that till the pandemic, till I started writing this book. I just thought that, things happened and this is my kismat and I'm very lucky to be where I am. But when I used that time in the pandemic when everything closed, my restaurant, my business, any dreams I had were all dead at that time. I started writing this book over the pandemic. And as I started writing about my mother, that's when I really realized how much she was, such an influence on my life that I had learned how to lead from her. I hadn't just learned how to cook. I'd learned this whole value of equality, of, of respect, of how anyone, irrespective of what background they came from, they were equal to you. You treated them like your own. And I think that I learned all of this without actually, it wasn't sat down and told to me. She didn't lecture me. My mother's not the type. By leading and doing things, and because I was always with her, I learned this. So, yes, I am an extension of her. I ended up doing food, but I also now realize so much of what she did, which is even more amazing, more radical than anything I have done, because this is India in the 70s and 80s. And she did it then when no one in my family even went to work. No one went to college. No girl had gone to college. Yet my mother had created this business and no one could challenge her because she was just so committed, but so respectful around the family that you couldn't actually tell her that, you shouldn't be working. Why are you coming back at 2 in the morning in her sari in a tempo, which is like a little truck. My mother was sitting on the biryani dekchi uh, because obviously there are no stools. And she would hop off, in her sari perfectly, at ease. And no one questioned this. And I just am amazed when I look back and think, wow, because you couldn't throw stones at her. She was too powerful, but in a very humble way. She was kind and respectful. Incredible. I mean, I really learned so much from her.
This is a different cookery book. Was it easy to write, and how did the idea come about?
It was very painful to write. I have cried so much while writing this book. It was like taking a knife through me in some ways because I was scared. I couldn't go to see my mother. And I had friends whose parents were passing away from COVID. I was terrified and petrified. In their 70s, my parents, you know, away from all kids, nobody could get to them. God forbid anything happened. So I lived with a fear. I spent so many sleepless nights, but I saw so many dawns. I seen more dawns as well. I cried a lot, but I watched a lot of this. I needed to see light breaking through darkness. I needed to know that day would follow night. One day I would see my mother again. And I started writing this book because I realized that I needed to write this book in her lifetime. I needed this book to come out while she was alive so she could appreciate. So I could finally put down in words what she could never tell me. She never told me she loved me in words, very rarely. She fed me. I am writing down in words, I love her. And all her recipes I'm sharing. And in a way, honoring her, but also honoring this unique relationship. Because I explained this thing that, I heard her heartbeat before I saw her. This we all forget. This is the closest relationship. You know your mother's heartbeat. The first sound you hear is that. And because of that, we take this relationship for granted. And I wanted this book to be a celebration of her, but also for others to read this if they are, if they're fortunate their mother's still alive, or the mother-like figure in their life is still alive, that they may have children, that they may have nieces and nephews, or even, friends' children. But this whole thing of understanding this bond of love and food, this is what this book was all, about, and this is why I wrote it. But I had the time to write it as well because my business was closed.
Has your mom read the book? What does she make of it?
She did. She was very emotional, but emotional in the way that I know she wanted to cry, but she didn't. That's Ammu. She was so overwhelmed. I could see it. She told me, I'm just smiling. My heart is smiling. I'm so proud of you. When did you grow up so quickly that you could write a book like this? Very sweet. I'm 52. But your mother can still tell you things like that, how did you suddenly learn to write so well? She was very emotional and she was very touched by I had bothered to go and find all her old photographs, and she approved of all the recipes. I would have been, and Ammu doesn't hold back. If she felt that I had left out a recipe, that, oh, you should have put this in the, she would have told me this. I was terrified. I was shaking that she would turn around and say, oh, but you should have put this as well. She didn't say anything. She said everything that I thought, oh, this, oh, she put this as well. Oh, she said, I'm just everything. It's 100 recipes divided over 5 chapters. It goes through 5 decades of my life. And she thought that I did quite well selecting those recipes.
You are your mom's daughter and you are mom to two boys. In what ways are you similar to your mom? And also, what ways are you different to your mom?
Let me say the different bit. I think that I have not been able to treat both my children equally. I
Why
know
is
that
that?
there's a 5 year difference. One child likes to eat, one child doesn't like to eat Indian food. Uh, and I think that, so I realized that I spend a lot of time cooking and feeding the child who likes to eat Indian food. Uh, and so somehow I have not been able, I feel I have not been as good as Ammu in making 3 children feel equal of 3 different interests. My siblings are not interested in food at all. My brother is a fussy eater. My sister looks like a Indian model even now. She looks 10 years younger than me. Uh, and so they're all very different. But Ammu somehow managed to do that. In many ways also, I mean, I'm similar in the way that for me, food is the language of love. I cook to to express my feelings, but I'm also better at communicating than my mother about affections and anger and feeling let down. I can talk about these things. Ammu never talks about these things. Uh, but I think that I am becoming her as I age. I see so much of Ammu in me that I am going to end up being just like her. And I think the difference in culture and the society that she grew up and I grew up in, even though it's very different, uh, we are personality wise very similar. So there is a huge similarity also with us.
You cooked with the Syrian refugees in 2019. Is there any plan to cook for refugees from Ukraine?
Yes, we are working on that. I'm also doing a lot of work with Indian students who have been trapped. I've had people working for me whose brother was trapped in Ukraine, so managed to get out. He's now just got home yesterday. Very traumatic. So we're doing work. It's uh, things that are very complicated because it's a war zone. But I've always done a lot of work in war zones. So yes, I am doing work. There's a very high profile campaign, cooking for Ukraine, which is, but there is enough focus on that. There is a huge problem. There are still 5 to 6,000 Indians stuck uh, in that area. And this is, I'm just thinking, what if it was my son or my daughter? It's just debilitating. We need to get them out. So I'm working on that through university, through friends. Uh, so that's what I'm doing. Not so much the refugees, but more, uh, you got to pick where you think enough work is not being done. Uh, and I think that's where I feel that there's work to be done. So through my own member of staff whose brothers got out, keeping track and trying to help to get more of their kids out.
Would you recommend a career in restaurants to Asian women?
Please do it, because the thing is, you have all the skills. I have not gone and done any training. You have the life skills. You are absolutely the mistress of the kitchen. You are an expert on spices. You are a brilliant cook. And every woman, the kind of timekeeping you have is what they teach you in culinary school by shouting at you. We know it intuitively. You know, if 5 minutes late, you are with your food, the kids think like, they've been starving for 10 days. Uh, there is an ungrateful audience you have been serving. So you're just right to go into a restaurant because you are now going to get paid and honored and respected for something you have done. Because in our culture, women eat last, girls eat least. And one last thing I want to say about this, why women should go into restaurants. In every home you go to, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lankan, Nepal, it is a woman cooking or in charge. Whether it's in the East or in the West, in every restaurant you go to, it is a man. And there's no problem. I hope the men are all very successful. But this is a problem. We are the ones who are doing it day in and day out. Yet we are not considered professional enough. People still ask me, you don't have a professional kitchen. I don't even know where to start. What is professionalism? Professionalism is being able to be perfect at your job. That is for me a professional. You don't need to carry a certificate with you. So the fact that you haven't gone to culinary school and you don't have a chef certificate, I don't. I can call myself a doctor. I have a PhD. What is a certificate worth? It is worth nothing. Your skills, your life skills, and the biggest thing is your heart. If you have the heart and the passion, be brave. Please, everyone who's listening to me, if you are interested in cooking, find routes in which you can be paid for the work you do and do not undercut the prices. If people like your paratha, let them pay for what you think it should be paid for. Do not undercut your prices. It is you're devaluing yourself.
How has life been after the pandemic with your restaurant in Covent Garden? And how do you expect the cost of living crisis to affect you as a business?
Very badly. The cost of living crisis is going to be worse than actually the pandemic. In some ways, sitting back with the place closed, you could actually calculate, this is my loss. This is the rent I'm supposed to be paying. This is my cost of things that I'm not getting. This is the income I'm not getting. Cost of living is random. I know everyone will relate to this. My price of cooking oil has just gone through the roof. I cannot get a lot of stuff. And now, with all the conversation, the price of wheat, which is so many of us eat roti and chapati, we serve in our restaurants, we eat at home, is going to skyrocket. So it's not about really kind of, panic and worrying, but it's going to be huge because, the main thing is transportation. Food comes through transportation. If the cost of oil goes up, we are all impacted. It's going to be huge. And for restaurants, just in a few weeks, VAT will go up from 12.5% to 20%. Business rates come back to full. How are we going to survive? It's going to be very, very difficult. And prices will have to go up. Already we are struggling to get customers in. I'm very fortunate because I'm full, because people want to come and eat in my restaurant. But I'm just saying as an industry, if you raise your prices by 12.5%, considering that VAT is going to go up by 20% as well, which most people put in the number. They don't add VAT on their menus because it's very confusing. It's just a price rise which might get people not to come to your restaurant. And of course, we have a labor shortage, labor crisis. Every restaurant is short of staff. It's a very hard space, and I think that the government has been terrible at recognizing and speaking to us. And I wish, Rishi Sunak had tried to find, talk to independent restaurateurs instead of talking to high-profile, chefs who are, on television. I really feel that also, Boris Johnson hasn't made an effort to talk to us. We're a very big employer of people. We are a huge contributor to the exchequer through VAT. And Indian food industry is massive. And I think that, we didn't also get an opportunity to express our concerns, which is very unfortunate. This is where we should learn how we need to actually maybe unionize, or we actually need to have better spokespeople, not be so fractured into different organizations. And this is something that I'm very committed about, trying to find a route where we can be one strong lobbying voice on behalf of everybody, instead of, taking our flags and sticking on saying, I am Bangladeshi Catering Association, I'm Pakistani, I'm Indian. We are all doing the same thing, and we're all in trouble.
Do you think the pandemic has made it easier or difficult for women, especially working moms?
Very difficult, because the memories of employers when they had homeschooling, and mothers having to look after, invariably mothers were the ones who were taking care of kids. I think that somehow the perception that women are weak pervades the society. And people are bringing back people as if they're going into a video game, Mortal Kombat, or they're going into war themselves. They're taking the tough men, the men are coming back. You see this in restaurants as well. Women are not being rehired, and especially mothers are not being rehired because all for the first time, men saw what it's like to have children at home the whole day when they sat at home during the pandemic. And they don't want to have these women back because they think the moment schools close, there's a problem. The women are weak and women are not reliable. It's always, every time, in war and famine, in crisis, in economic crisis, women pay the part, pay a very hard, price, and women of color, we disproportionately suffer the most.